I'm Harrison Graham. Nighthawk is kicking off our Bears Now mailbag. He asks, could the Bears sign Michael Thomas as a wide receiver 4 if the Bears don't feel great about Tyler Scott? And yeah, I think the second part of that's key. I think ideally Tyler Scott would be that guy. But Michael Thomas, as we're filming this, still out there. It's obviously been a tumultuous few years. He's had a lot of injuries. Last year played in just 10 games, but decent numbers in those 10 games. If he played 17, he probably would have had about a 750-yard season. So certainly not bad. He's not that number one guy we saw way back in 2019. Didn't even play in 2021. Only 7 games in 23 games in 22. So he's missed a lot of time over the past 4 seasons. The only issue is, okay, you bring him in. Yeah, in theory, he probably is your 4th best receiver, and maybe even your 3rd if Odunze isn't quite ready, although I think he's going to be. The issue is, let's say he is your 4th best receiver. Okay, cool, that's an upgrade at that spot. Are you going to bring in Michael Thomas to be your 4th receiver when he's not going to play at all on special teams and he's had the injuries that he's had? I don't see it. I don't see it happening. If you're Michael Thomas, why would you sign with the Bears, who have the best wide receiver trio on paper, when there's other teams out there where he could conceivably be like their number 2 receiver still? As crazy as it sounds, a team like the Chiefs, he could be their 2 or 3, especially if Rashee Rice misses time with the suspension. So I don't think the Bears are the fit for him. I'd be surprised if he ended up here, but we'll have to wait and see. You never know, I guess. But if they sign a receiver, I think it's going to be a guy that probably offers more speed and can play a little bit on special teams. Like Mecole Hardman's still out there. That could be a guy maybe the Bears would consider, especially if Velus Jones isn't producing. Would you sign Michael Thomas? What do you guys think? Type S for sign or P for pass. I'd probably pass here. The injuries, I don't think it makes sense from his standpoint or the Bears, so I think I'm going to look the other way here. Mr. Nobody TV with the super chat. He says, trade 2025 second for Vita Vea or Greg Rousseau. I mean, I'd do that. For sure for Rousseau, who's a young, emerging edge rusher. And, by the way, the Bears' new defensive coordinator, Eric Washington, came from Buffalo, who groomed Rousseau to become one of the best young pass rushers in the NFL. So I would do that. Can't imagine Buffalo would trade a young asset like that for a second. Vita Vea may be more gettable. He's getting a little bit older. The only issue is he's more of a nose tackle. So, he plays nose. Billings becomes your backup, who you signed to a decent 2-year contract. He's obviously much better than Billings, but you still have the 3-tech question mark. So that would be the only issue there. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do it, but the value would be pretty decent, even though the fit may not be the best when you need more of a 3-tech. The Notcast with the super chat, he says, could you see Kmet breakout year if Caleb favors him? A Mahomes plus Kelsey connection in Chicago would be dope. Also, could Everett be out Kmet as tight end 1? Everett's tight end 2. He's just kind of a receiving tight end. He'll block occasionally, but not much. Kmet obviously does both. He's the clear tight end 1. That being said, A, he's already broken out. B, I guess what you're saying is if he becomes a 1,000-yard tight end, I don't really think that's his game. A, this team's loaded with receivers now. B, as good as Kmet is, he's nowhere near Kelsey. Nowhere near. Even if Caleb and Kmet built an awesome connection, he's not going to be a guy that catches the ball over the middle, pivots and spins the other way and gives you 30 yards after the catch like Kelsey can. Just not his game. He's just not that agile. He's reliable. He's got strong hands. He'll break the occasional tackle, but he's just not the fluid receiving catcher that Travis Kelce is. He's just a completely different player. So I could actually see him getting better, but his numbers going down just because there's so many more weapons in this offense now. So kind of a long-winded answer of saying it's not going to be a Mahomes Kelce 2.0. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a good player in this offense, though. He has been the last few years. Hit that subscribe button, because if you want to be a part of these mailbag episodes, got to join us live, because we take your questions only on live shows. So hit that sub button, turn on notifications. That way you know exactly when we go live. Usually live on Mondays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock Central Time. Wasim Khan with the super, appreciate it. He said, saw the earlier episode where you don't want Caleb to be turned into a pocket passer. Do you really think they'd make the same mistakes again? Just to clarify here, there was a report from Jeremy Fowler saying that the Bears and Caleb are working overtime, to get him up to speed with the playbook, the new footwork, all that stuff, which Every quarterback has to go through that. My only thing that I was saying is just don't coach the playmaking out of them. I don't have any reason to believe they're doing that. I'm just saying don't do that. Like, let him be him. Now, he's got to learn the balance of when to play within structure, when to play within the offense, and when to, escape and let instincts take over. And I would encourage the Bears to encourage Caleb to be himself, but also understanding, like, hey, 1st and 10, if the 8-yard in route is open, just throw it. Just hit it. We'll take 2nd and 2. So, you gotta find that balance. I have no reason to believe Wasim, they're going to coach the, incredible playmaking out of him, because that's what makes him special. Dave is a beastly. Will Caleb break the 4,000-yard record for the Bears? The answer is yes. Whether it happens this year, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty confident he will eventually. I think he's got a shot to do it this year, which would be awesome as a rookie. If he does that, he will run away with Rookie of the Year. But I think he will do it. I just don't know if it'll be this year. But he's got a shot with these weapons, man. These 3 receivers, Kmet, Swift out of the backfield. It's absolutely doable. It's absolutely doable. Jay Reezy, if we wanted to trade up for Rome, why not MHJ or Nabers? Just curious. I mean, what's pretty interesting here is the Bears on 1920 Drive, their latest episode on YouTube, which, by the way, appreciate all your messages. They used a couple of clips from our show. That's pretty cool. That's a credit to you guys for how much we've grown. But Ian Cunningham, after they got Odunze at 9, shook Ryan Poles' hand and said, pretty cool, we got our number 1 and number 2 guy. If we're to take that literally, that means they had Odunze as the number 2 player on their board. And remember those reports before the draft. Some teams have Odunze as the top receiver. Some teams have Nabers as the top receiver. They clearly had him ahead of Nabers if you were watching that episode. Like, Poles was getting jittery at 6, like, oh, I'm worried that the Giants are going to take Rome. But then Eberflus was like, I think they're going to take Nabers. They clearly had him ahead of Nabers, and there's reason to believe they had him ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, I personally liked MHJ more than I thought it was neck and neck with Nabers, but they clearly liked him a lot, and the value at 9, regardless of your receiver rankings, I had him as my number 4 overall prospect. I had Caleb in the 3 receivers. It was great value regardless. Predict the Bears 2024 record, 17-game season. What do you think the Bears will do? If you missed it, subscribe, go to the content tab. I've got a full episode of my record prediction, game-by-game prediction, and where the Bears end up this year, so go check that out. Winnie DePujol, what a name. Do you think her on Dexter has over/under 8 sacks? I think her is I think you mean, Gervon. I think you got typoed there. I would take the under. I mean, 2.5 last year. I get it. He's going to get a chance to be their starter, and I do think he'll play better. I mean, if he doubles that number, you got to be pretty happy, right? Like, if Gervon Dexter has a 5-sack season, I mean, are we pouting over here? I'd be pretty pleased with that. If he has 8+, I mean, you're talking about one of the more disruptive interior guys in the league. So, if he gave me 5 or more, I'd be pretty pleased. I would take the under 8, though. DC Viper, could the Bears sign Sterling Shepard or Russell Gage for depth at receiver? They could. Again, similar to the Michael Thomas discussion, especially for Shepard. With the injuries he's had, he's not playing special teams. Now, if he wants to come in and fight for a roster spot, sure. Russell Gage, he could give you some punch on special teams, so that's an interesting one. But yeah, again, most teams operate. If you're not a starter at receiver or corner or safety, one of these skill position groups, you got to be able to provide special teams value. Like, Michael Thomas ain't got to be a gunner on special teams. It's just not going to happen. So Sterling Shepard, with all his injuries, he's not playing special teams. So you got to factor those things in. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to our mailbag episode. If you missed out, subscribe to the channel right here. We appreciate everybody getting their questions in. You can also follow me on social media at HGramNFL, both on Twitter and Instagram over there.